Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we're going to be talking about squirrel, bright, shiny objects, especially in the marketing world, because we get so caught up in what's new, what's great, what's fastest, what's this, that we forget that the simple, basic tactics are usually the best. So please join me in welcoming Caroline Crawford to our program today. Welcome, Caroline. How are you?
Hi, Deb. Thank you so much for having me. I'm great, and I'm so excited to be here today.
We're going to have such a great chat. So let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into it. So Caroline Crawford is a seasoned marketing and communications expert with a 13-year successful track record of blending the visionary with the integrator. After seeing firsthand how the marketing industry fuels shiny object syndrome, Caroline found Cultiveight Communications to address challenges faced by businesses such as limited resources and marketing pressures. Cultiveight Communications provides the tools, resources, and support business leaders need to align their marketing initiatives effectively to achieve overarching business goals, simplify their brand, and connect with their audience. Caroline is on a mission of supporting more business leaders to secure an integrated marketing approach that goes beyond typical marketing gimmicks. So again, Caroline, welcome.
Thank you so much, Deb. What an intro.
I know. We always love hearing our own intro, right? We're like, oh, yeah. So I always like to ask my guests, the first question is, tell us how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, it's been kind of a journey. I've been in marketing and communications for almost inching up to 14 years now, which is crazy. I loved it, fell in love with it, just never stopped. But throughout my career, I was always at companies that had a very dynamic marketing infrastructure.
Okay.
It was very limited resources. A lot of the times I was like a solo marketing team, or maybe one of two or three. And also dealing with a lot of leadership challenges in the sense of there was a lot of disconnect between the value of marketing and what really goes into marketing. It just, even though that was like frustrating at the beginning or like while you were in it, I see, especially in hindsight 2020, like you see it now, you see what starts to happen. And I also, by being that in-house resource, whenever we did get the ability to hire out externally or potentially get a new team or hire internally, whatever that looked like, there were a lot of challenges on the other side. So I started to, in 2019, I started to really see, I had just landed a new job and was realizing that after almost 10 years doing this, the same challenges occurred in every organization. I just started to recognize these patterns. And while I was the common thread, you could say, in many cases,
You were the problem.
Yes, exactly. Right. But I just started to really realize like, okay, like what really was happening? How can I take a different approach now that I'm fully aware of this pattern? And I just started to just kind of craft different methods or just see and pay closer attention. And then that's what formed the idea of Cultiveight Communications. Ultimately, what got me here was the fact that we live in a world now, especially in business, where marketing is getting the bottom of the barrel budget a lot of the times. And people don't really understand why they're not getting the results that they want. On the flip side, there's a lot of people really trying to invest in marketing and are really trying to give it their all, and they're still not getting results. So what does that do? It really puts a bad face to marketing. And people are like, I don't understand what's happening here. And so Cultivate is really designed to, one, help bridge that gap between leadership and marketing. So business owners see marketing differently and can really understand, like, okay, I get why we're investing in something like X, and how that isn't going to necessarily, maybe we have to shift our expectations that it won't directly correlate to someone calling us up saying we want us, but it will raise our brand awareness. And that's also just a very generalized example, but just as something to share. And then also too, how they can start thinking about marketing before they're ready to actually market. And so that's kind of the role we play in many ways, of it, kind of just like this added layer of really helping businesses understand what it is that marketing can do for them, helping them see their product, their offering, and just their brand and business in a light that like essentially separates them, so they could see it in the eyes of their customers, because that's where it gets lost a lot of the time. And so we do that through various ways. Some of it's just needing a complete overhaul. Some of it's tinkering with operations. We look at everything across the board, from marketing, communications, to sales, to how is your brand? What does your brand look like? How does your brand speak? Who's your audience? What are your operations? Everything. Because marketing, and this is what I meant by an integrated marketing approach, that's in my bio, of an integrated marketing approach really connects everything in marketing and sales all together.
Right.
And marketing really is not like, hey, social media, and I'm going to go put all my eggs in this basket, as an example. There's a lot of factors at play with marketing and people, but the marketing industry, for instance, supports marketing in silos. And so when that happens, you're not seeing the full picture. So that is the biggest piece of our puzzle, in the sense of we help you see how everything connects together, and doing so in a way that's actually sustainable, because you see people who are just casting such a wide net, and again, shiny object syndrome comes to play, and all of these things. And now, but like, if you really see how it all connects, you can think smarter about it, not harder.
Right. And there are the basic marketing tenets, and then there are the bright, shiny objects. And some of the bright, shiny objects are great. I was, talking to somebody about this the other day, where, 10-ish years ago, I had told somebody, I think that social media is really going to be big for businesses. And this person said, it is a waste of time and nobody will ever use it. And I did go back to her and say, yeah.
As you should.
Well, and of course, the problem is, we, whether it's our specialty or just part of something we have to do, or we at least have to know how it's done to tell somebody else how to do it, trying to figure out what is the bright, shiny object and what is not. It does tend to be one of the trickier things. I mean, she was not going to learn how to do social media at all. She's, except for, posting pictures of the grandkids, right? She saw no reason to learn how to do it for business. And then that meant she was behind when she wanted to do it, because she didn't have a Facebook business page. More importantly, she had no followers. She didn't even really know how to use the various platforms. You went to her LinkedIn page, and I believe LinkedIn is a marketing tool. And you went, and she hadn't updated it in 5 years. I mean, all sorts of things. So she was just behind, because what is the opposite of the bright, shiny object? The troglodyte or something like that? I don't know. She was, I've done it this way my entire career, and this is how I'm going to do it. And we have to adapt and we have to change, but sorting through what and when is probably the biggest challenge.
Totally. 100%. And just to touch on something you said of, I call that tunnel vision. If you're so focused on one way of doing something, or even if it's a couple ways, right? Like, you're still limiting yourself with the way that even those things can expand, even if you just stick with those, to really expand. And so, but yeah, it's true. And I think that's part of the problem, is that a lot of business owners and business leaders, and I've seen this throughout my career, and even I've caught it with myself. Like we all have sort of our own perceptions around marketing and what specific things can do. And social media may not work for certain people and certain businesses. Like it just depends on the business. Sometimes it works for others, right? Like it has proven to work, but it's also proven to not work as well, right? So that is where you need to really start. The first step of sorting through is really to understand your type of business. How do your customers really resonate
How do
with
they
you?
find you?
How do they find you? But how do you communicate with them? Like, what are they doing when you're not talking to them? Right. And this is a simple question to even ask when you're just choosing which social media platform to use. Like, are your customers actually sitting on their phones ready to buy if like a major purchase and they're just going to impulse buy? I mean, I'm sure that I guarantee there's some depending on the purchase, but like, you know, there are some where it's like, okay, well, with LinkedIn, it's a little bit of a different vibe on there. So how do you do it? And like, that's really where you just have to kind of tap
Is your demographic even on TikTok?
So, right. Exactly. Like if you're in like financial services for like large corporations, they're likely not on TikTok.
Right.
You know,
but they are on LinkedIn.
Right. Right. So you really have to, and that is marketing, right? And that is where marketing is very layered. So while the core tenets of marketing and the core principles and all of that really doesn't waver too much, that's where the tactics really do come into play of like, okay, will this work? Does TikTok work for me or LinkedIn or what type of content should I be posting? But ultimately, it's what matters most to your customers and your brand.
Right. Yeah. And like you said, figuring that out is what's important. I've used this example before. A billboard this is a real billboard. I have seen this billboard. It's an advertisement for a bail bondsman, right? And, it's, in jail, call me, whatever type of thing, which seems kind of bizarre. However, when you look at its location, it is across the street from the sheriff's department. And I actually asked somebody, I didn't know this, I don't know this, but I asked somebody, and they said from the place where they make their one phone call, they look out the window and they see the billboard. That's perfect placement, right?
Genius.
Yes. I mean, that's just fabulous. And, and yeah, if you saw that billboard pretty much anywhere else, you're probably not going to remember it. Now you might, but yeah, I mean, they're looking out the window thinking, I'm in trouble. I need to get out of here. Oh, look, there's the phone number. And so it is about, I think that's the first thing that so many people struggle with is who are they marketing to? And folks, it ain't the world. It's not everybody. No, there is, and I've been trying to think of this. Is there any product that's even just for, say, every US person? I mean, not just everybody in the world, but is there any product that would be for anybody? And I never can think of one because, like Starbucks. My husband does not like Starbucks. A lot of people do not like fancy coffee. A lot of people aren't going to go shop in Walmart. A lot of people aren't going to buy Mercedes-Benz. But I really cannot think of any product where you can say my client is anybody. But that's
gas
a benefit
potentially. But
this is true. But then, but now, of course, we've got electric cars.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's good. Good point. Good. You poked a hole in that one. Yeah.
Sorry. And so, I mean, it's one of those things where you have to figure that out. And until you figure that out, you're going to be spinning your wheels.
Yeah. That's a great point because I think people have a generalized idea of their clientele.
Right.
They think, okay, unless it's like a specific industry, they're, then they're like, oh, they go by the problems, right? Which is fair, right?
Right.
Like you're there to solve a problem, especially for service providers, but even for products, right? It serves a purpose of some sort. But I think what they fail to do is get into the minds of their clients, kind of to what you're saying, right? Like and because that takes a lot of work, and that's harder to do than you would think in some ways because you have to remove yourself from the equation.
Mhm.
It can't be about you.
Right.
And you really have to think about what is top of my mind. What am
Mhm.
I spending my day on? What do
Mhm.
I care about? What do I worry about? What keeps me up at night? All the things that you can't,
Mhm.
you may not know the answer, or you may be afraid to try
Mhm.
to know the
Mhm.
answer. But either way, that is what makes the strongest
Mhm.
marketing is that if you can market in a way that there is no doubt that I'm for you. Like, and that's why
Mhm.
bail bondsmen or attorneys
Mhm.
like that you see on the side of on the
Mhm.
bill with their billboard saying in an accident, like
Mhm.
they're very clear. I mean,
Right.
that one's like a
Yeah,
very
you've gone
simple way.
thud in front of them and you look up and go, "Oh, look, there's the sign."
Exactly. And so like you can market in that way, but it's harder, especially for service-based
Mhm.
businesses where it's like, okay, what is really the problem
Mhm.
that you are able to
Mhm.
solve that isn't something that like, okay, it happens on the side of the road and
Mhm.
like, oh my God, you're in a
Mhm.
panic, right? And
Right.
so that's where you really have to kind of create, like emulate
Mhm.
essentially that
Mhm.
on a continuous
Mhm.
basis.
Right. And I always, because this is what I do, I always, am looking at things, and so like I'll be watching a TV program and a commercial will come on and I'll think the people who are watching this TV show, that is not the right market. And
Hmm.
it's like say late night TV and they're advertising children's toys.
Right.
Now, granted, you might be wanting to buy a children's toy for somebody, but when they're advertising children's toys, they are advertising it to little kidlet who goes, "Mommy, mommy, buy me this." They're not up at 10 o'clock at night. But when they are up, that might be when it's more expensive. And so then people figure, okay, well, I can get 2 for 1 if I do after 10 or something. Again, you're wasting your money.
Yeah, I think I love that example because also too, something in the kids realm. It's like you have sometimes the product or service that you're
Mm-hmm.
providing is actually not for the person that you're marketing
Mm-hmm.
for.
Right.
So, and that's exactly the case in point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the kid's not getting out there and buying something
Mm-hmm.
from, whatever
Wherever.
store.
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
they don't have the money.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
know-how yet. So I think that's also something that I've seen a lot where it's like you again have to remove
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Like if you're not the kid
Mm-hmm.
and you're not like I had a client once who she was in education for teens, for high
Mm-hmm.
schoolers, but her marketing was for the high schoolers. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
you think your your audience that you're serving is going to be for the people like they're not going to see it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not
Right.
scanning the website. How
Mm-hmm.
can I improve my grades?
Mm-hmm.
Their moms are,
Right. Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
that's where the shift can be
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like where are you
Mm-hmm.
potentially marketing in a way that it's actually a
Mm-hmm.
little bit, it's like you're kind of once removed
Mm-hmm.
from the person who
Mm-hmm.
actually is going to do the
Right.
buying.
Yeah. And again, you have to know where. I had a client one time whose target demographic is me, right? So somebody that's over 50, we won't say how far. But and things like that. And they wanted stuff on Instagram. And actually they called it the IG. And it took me a while to figure out what the IG was. And then I finally realized, oh, they meant, IG, Instagram. And so clearly they didn't know the platform at all, right? Because nobody calls it IG. So I told him, I said, no, that is going to be a waste of time because the people who are going to buy your product are not on Instagram. And yeah, there's and of course somebody's point is always going to be my wife, me, whoever, somebody in that market is on there. Well, okay, but you might not be the normal average person who's there. Like you said,
Yeah.
we're not marketing to you.
Yeah, and also too, like the whole point or what makes I think this is also the challenge, right? It's like you
Mhm.
can always find the loophole.
Right.
Case in
Oh
point
yeah,
with the
you
gas
can find that
stations,
one
right? Like
person
now
going,
we're in electric,
uh-huh,
right? You can always kind of
mhm,
find a way to justify
mhm,
it. Here's where it stems from though. People are too afraid to cut things out. They're
mhm.
too afraid
Right,
to miss a
because we
potential
might
opportunity.
miss somebody.
Hmm. but you're making it that much harder for you when you do it
Right.
the other way.
Right.
Because again, and this is where like ad spend, right? Like why a lot of advertisers they have a great ability to leverage data and then retarget things. But if they should, if your advertiser's not doing it, PSA, make sure that they are. They should capture your customer data to make sure they're not spending money on you or on the customers that you already have, because it's wasted ad spend.
Right.
It's kind of the same principle of like, if you are also casting a wide net to where you're hitting people that really are not nowhere in the realm, just on the off chance, you're just kind of letting money slip through the cracks.
Right. And it is scary because you're thinking, well, but I'm missing all of those people. But yeah, they weren't going to buy from you anyway.
Right. Right. Exactly. They weren't.
Yeah. And yeah, but then we come back to but I don't know where to go. And we were talking before the program about AI. I have started dabbling in AI. I love it. I think it's fun. It is definitely the bright, shiny object. And but there's thousands. There are now thousands of AI different programs that do a variety of things. And for people who are going, oh my God, I don't like AI. Well, then you can't use Siri. You can't use your GPS. Folks, that's AI. I hate to tell you, but that's AI because it's giving you suggestions. It's figuring things out. There's not a little gremlin in your phone that has a little map and is drawing things. No, it's the computer is figuring it out.
The robots have already taken over.
I know. And so we've been doing this for many years. Is it a little scary? Yes. But shoot, I now use it to write 3-word emails because it's easier, but with all these, we go down those rabbit holes. I was talking to somebody the other day, it was my business coach. And I was telling her, I'm starting to use this and this and this and this and this. And she got the all-knowing look. And I went, what? And she said, how much are you just playing? And how much are you accomplishing something? And like I spent probably an hour and a half creating an AI generated image that still wasn't quite the way I wanted it, which is why it was an hour and a half, because I kept tweaking and tweaking and tweaking and tweaking and then start over. Or, oh my gosh, let's use a different program and see what they come up with. And a quick Google search probably could have found me something pretty similar to what I needed, right? But that wasn't as much fun. So how do we get past the fun and the bright, shiny objects?
Well, I love what you said. I love that question. Playing versus accomplishing. And I think that actually is the case in many, many ways. We can make ourselves extremely busy and not yet we have accomplished nothing, right? Same sort of concept. So I would say when it comes to the shiny object syndrome, one, self-awareness is key. Like how do you
oh my gosh, how long did I just spend doing this?
Right. Like you have to be willing to ask yourself, where am I potentially complicating the process? Where am I potentially making things confusing for myself, for my team, for AI? Like, especially when it's like not spitting out the right thing. Like, I wonder, where can I potentially shift things?
Right.
And even especially like just getting in the mindset of like, you are a business leader. Let's say you have maybe a few team members, maybe a virtual assistant, whatever that may be, or even yourself, like even if you can, kind of separate yourself a little bit, but just understanding, like kind of taking a step back and saying, okay, what do I actually need right now? What is really like because here's where I think a lot of people get tripped up with marketing. The shiny object syndrome, like it's all noise. People are coming at you being like, I can make you so much money. I can get you seen. I can get you this. I can get you that. Connect with your audience. Stay visible. All the marketing jargon. I am a marketer. I've done it. I've used it. I've fallen
and
then
we toss in SEO and all those other terms.
All the things. Then that's a whole other. It's Pandora's box the second you start being like, okay, I need marketing. However, here's the thing. Like, you have to have, and this is why, again, like just my philosophy is like educating as I'm going, because you have to have awareness of what expectations you're going to drive in. And I think this is a case in point of like people who have never marketed before, and they're like, I'm going to drop XYZ on advertising,
Mm-hmm.
and it falls flat.
Mm-hmm.
There's a
So
reason
then
for
they're
that.
never gonna do it again.
Right. Exactly. Or social media, but but they need sales now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you have to understand, what are your business goals right now? Because I'm sure you have an endless list of business goals, I
Mm-hmm.
guarantee it,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But what is something that you need to move the needle now? So if you are saying, I need sales immediately, I have no time to waste,
Mm-hmm.
then you should not be investing in press right
Mm-hmm.
now.
Right.
You should not be investing in social media
Mm-hmm.
that's never been
Mm-hmm.
activated before,
Right.
right? Those things take time.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's where you really you have to be just super brutally honest,
Mm-hmm.
because the brand awareness will come later.
Mm-hmm.
All of these other things will come later, but you have to be brutally honest. If you
Mm-hmm.
want sales now
Mm-hmm.
that you have no time to waste,
Mm-hmm.
then don't invest in marketing that is going to not really move the
Mm-hmm.
needle in the way you want. And then you get frustrated,
Mm-hmm.
and then money down the drain.
Right.
Another point too is, if you want sales now, like, you have to be willing to help
Mm-hmm.
facilitate that
Mm-hmm.
process. So are you willing to do the outreach? If you're not, that's when you start to say, okay, well, I connected with this guy. He's willing to do outreach more for me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you have to filter all of these things that
Mm-hmm.
come at you. A lot of them are marketing
Mm-hmm.
gimmicks, right? I
Mm-hmm.
just saw a post today. I've seen it before. It's come up because I'm a target. I get targeted all of the marketing ads,
And we're
obviously.
saying these things, and Alexa is listening, and yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly. Guaranteed. I'm going to get so many ads right now after this
Mm-hmm.
call. So, it's like someone, I don't know, 10x their income in 30 days
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. Here's the exact playbook.
Right.
That's a typical marketing gimmick you see
Mm-hmm.
time and,
Mm-hmm.
and again. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it drives me up a wall, because marketing is not one size fits all in
Mm-hmm.
many cases. You can
Mm-hmm.
learn from people's playbooks,
Mm-hmm.
in fairness. You can, I guarantee that there are some people that were, they finally nailed
Mm-hmm.
it for themselves
Mm-hmm.
and they got it down. However, marketing is not one size fits
Mm-hmm.
all, and you're not seeing the iceberg
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of them. You're
Mm-hmm.
only seeing the tip of like
Mm-hmm.
what they're willing to show
Right.
you. You don't see the failed ad spend. You don't
Mm-hmm.
see the headaches. You don't
Mm-hmm.
see the stress. You don't see all the things that you're likely dealing with, but you
Mm-hmm.
think you're the only one,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's what starts to feel shiny object
Mm-hmm.
syndrome, because you're like, this person's laying it out so
Mm-hmm.
clearly. Like, maybe they know something I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they do know
Mm-hmm.
something you don't. We're
Mm-hmm.
all here to learn,
Mm-hmm.
like, I still buy
That's
things
why
and
we're
I'm like
doing
learning.
this. Mm-hmm.
Literally, exactly. So
Mm-hmm.
I think you just have to be very cognizant around what what your
Mm-hmm.
ultimate goals are, what's going to move the needle.
Mm-hmm.
Is what you're about to invest in actually going to accomplish
Mm-hmm.
directly those
Mm-hmm.
goals?
Right.
Or is it something where you still have to, have a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
hand holding
Mm-hmm.
with, or
Mm-hmm.
you have to have patience or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where like people have a hard time discerning,
Mm-hmm.
because I think, and I've fallen trapped to it, and I've seen other people fall trapped to it. Like, especially when we're hiring help, we're like, all right, I'm going to throw my hands up in the air. I
Mm-hmm.
finally got the help. I'm willing
Mm-hmm.
to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you're not really willing to help kind of make it through, like, your job
Mm-hmm.
as a business leader is to make, like, everyone's
Mm-hmm.
failures are your failures on
Right.
your
Yeah.
team,
You are
right?
ultimately the buck stops here person.
Right, exactly. So that's where we just need to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think you just have to use
Mm-hmm.
discernment, but know your goals and know what you have patience for
Mm-hmm.
right now
Mm-hmm.
and what you think you want to do in the
Mm-hmm.
future. Keep track of
Mm-hmm.
those. And then you can kind of start to
Mm-hmm.
discern, like, okay, I do want social media. I do eventually see it,
Mm-hmm.
social media being really useful for
Mm-hmm.
my brand, but I do really need
Mm-hmm.
sales now, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just not going to accomplish what I
Mm-hmm.
need. So maybe I
Mm-hmm.
invest that budget into, or time, money, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
into someone who can help me craft the right emails to
Mm-hmm.
people to do outreach more
Right.
regularly,
Mm-hmm.
or
Buy the
whatever that looks
billboard,
like.
buy the,
Buy the billboard, do the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
advertising. Advertising's tricky
Mm-hmm.
because if you've never marketed before and then all of a sudden you do, like you're gonna fall flat. And advertisers, I have a love-hate relationship with advertising because it can be so effective, but it is not a silver bullet. It's
Right.
not going to solve all the problems. So a lot of the times what happens is people get sold on advertising. They do it. One, the advertising industry makes it so accessible. That's why you can start with Facebook for like $1. But like that dollar's not going to get you anywhere. So
Right.
therefore you're out $30 because you just did it for a month or $100, whatever that looks like. And so what starts to happen is like you just start kind of throwing money at it, and
Right.
it just starts to add up. So the debt becomes larger and larger, and you don't feel it right away.
Right.
But then you fall flat.
Right. Or, example of Facebook, maybe that didn't work, but there was a reason for it. You didn't have it targeted right. You didn't have the right text, headline, image, whatever. And, like I said, so many times people go, that didn't work. I'm never trying it again. Well, no, figure out why it didn't work. And that I think is one of the biggest things. But I was also thinking, as you were talking about this, folks, we can't just throw willy-nilly. You have to do strategic planning. I mean, if you have reached the, oh my God, I need money right now, or my doors are going to close, then there's a different issue. You haven't been planning. You haven't been doing all of these things. And so if you can, now if your doors are going to close tomorrow, yeah, that's different. But if you're kind of in that panic mode, and maybe not even if you're in the panic mode, you have to plan. And this is not the silo type of planning. I mean, I've been in companies before where marketing and sales were all the way across the building from each other, and they never talked to each other. That's and R&D and all these, no, because everybody had their little fiefdoms, right? And nobody wanted to share, and because if you did, they might discover you weren't needed, or all of these things. And so, but we have to plan, and it's kind of like maybe the farmer. The farmer knows they have to grow XYZ crop, but they also have to know, when do you plant, when do you do this, when do you do that, and because they can't just say, I'm going to plant now. No, that's probably not going to work. You have to do your strategic planning and kind of build into it. Okay, we maybe something new comes along, or new opportunity, something pops up. Well, then we might want to take advantage of it. But I think that is probably one of the biggest issues, and I'm going to raise my hand on this, that we don't plan. We're like, and that comes back to the bright, shiny object, right? We just hop from bright, shiny object to the next bright, shiny object. And, I think it really is what we said at the start. Simplify, folks, get back to the basics, and then go from there. So talk to us more about that. How do we really figure out how to simplify, and then we use that to grow?
Yeah, well, just to quickly touch on the strategic planning side, like that's music to my ears.
I
It's
saw that on
interesting.
your website.
Yeah, I am not it's so funny because I'm not a planner. I'm like my day to day. I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, like whatever.
Lunch.
I hate schedules, like
Mhm.
all of that. But in business,
Mhm.
you've got to plan.
Right.
You cannot, you literally cannot afford
Mhm.
to not plan.
Mhm.
And this is how, and also too, strategically planning, one, builds momentum.
Mhm.
It helps you figure out
Mhm.
how to, like you said, simplify, and I'll
Mhm.
get into that in a second, but it helps you figure out how all the pieces are going to connect together.
Mhm.
It helps you work smarter, not
Mhm.
harder, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And marketing is not meant to be siloed off, but the
Mhm.
way that the industry has
Mhm.
designed it, and the way that marketing support is delivered, is that it's siloed off.
Mhm. Right.
And so this is why, like, why my philosophy is the way it is, because you can't look at one piece of the marketing
Mhm.
puzzle and like think that's going to solve it. And a
Mhm.
lot of the times people are like, all right, I just need social media help. And like, that's it. I'm
Mhm.
like, you've got a bigger
Send
problem.
out a press release.
Right. Like that's
Mhm.
not gonna help. And
Mhm.
sometimes too, like it really takes a lot of digging. Like
Mhm.
I have a client that, they came to us and they were like, look, we've been trying everything, or what they thought was everything, for
Mhm.
years, and nothing was really working. They were like dying on a vine. And I was like, okay, yeah, like there's a marketing problem here. You know, there were some other obvious things, but I was like, ultimately, you've got a sales problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be willing to look at the
Mm-hmm.
root, and strategic planning will
Right.
help you do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in terms of simplifying, I love marketing really is
Mm-hmm.
simple, even though again, it's very layered, it can
Mm-hmm.
feel very complicated. But if you understand how each player, like what role each one plays, so like
Mm-hmm.
why SEO is a thing,
Mm-hmm.
why advertising is a thing, why press is a thing. If you understand how each kind of contribute, it just kind of gives you the where,
Mm-hmm.
the like the where with, I forget, I'm blanking on the term. It just gives you the awareness, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
of, you know, where, like, what is this going to do for
Mm-hmm.
me? And then compare back to your business
Mm-hmm.
goals, or
Mm-hmm.
your
Right.
capacity or your patience or whatever it is that you have to kind of compare it to. And so the way to simplify it is, what is most important to you
Mm-hmm.
right now? What do
Mm-hmm.
I need to move the needle? What do I have the patience for
Mm-hmm.
is another question that a
Right.
lot of people do not
Mm-hmm.
ask, because no one has patience for
Mm-hmm.
anything. And also too, like, that's how you're going to manage your expectations. Do I have the patience to
Mm-hmm.
wait 3 months to get to see some action on
Mm-hmm.
my social media? No, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And that tells you something,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, and your patience will shift and your
Mm-hmm.
goals will shift and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. And so get really clear about that. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
do I have the patience for, and what's most
Mm-hmm.
important to me right now? And what do I expect,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, because I think too, sometimes people go down their marketing rabbit hole with different expectations, even though they're like, okay, yes, I know it's going to take me a
Mm-hmm.
few months. I know it's going to take X, but then they don't realize how much more was really required from
Mm-hmm.
them, or maybe they just had some sort of different
Mm-hmm.
expectation. I don't know, but just get an understanding of that. So that's
Mm-hmm.
step one. Even though like I just spewed out a bunch of questions, those are actually relatively simple questions to ask
You should
yourself.
know those.
You should already know those. They
Mm-hmm.
should not take that much time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe take a little bit of time just to
Mm-hmm.
be really intentional with it.
Well, yeah, and make sure everybody has the same one. I mean,
Right.
what do your sales think? What are your, yeah, all the different, even
Right.
just different people. What do they think?
Yeah. Is everyone on the same
Mm-hmm.
page about our priorities? It's
Mm-hmm.
really just getting your priorities in
Mm-hmm.
order.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where you can say, okay, I really want to raise my brand awareness. That's a huge piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
My sales, I definitely, because here's the thing, everyone wants more sales.
Mm-hmm.
No one's
More
going to say,
sales,
no,
more
no.
money.
Yeah, like no one is going to say, no, I don't want any more sales.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and like, I used to ask that question, like, what's your goal right now or whatever. And people would just say more sales. I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
outside of sales, like,
Mm-hmm. Right.
what is your
Raise
goal?
awareness.
Raise awareness. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, it is telling, like, if you're like, I really need sales, like that is
Mm-hmm.
saying something. But
Mm-hmm.
I would say that, like, understanding your
Mm-hmm.
priorities and what you need, that's when you can go back and say, okay, you know what? Like, I do really need sales, but like we're
Mm-hmm.
kind of steady. Maybe we just need some improvement to make this process
Right.
more
Mm-hmm.
efficient. But we do really want to start up some brand awareness, or we
Mm-hmm.
want to actually have more
Mm-hmm.
connection with the people that we're like,
Mm-hmm.
networking with.
Mm-hmm.
I need an email person. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just, obviously this is just like one example of
Right.
like
Mm-hmm.
how your brain can work,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's when you just start to kind of piece together and say, okay, I do need someone who can help me with email
Mm-hmm.
and can keep these people engaged that are not ready to buy right
Mm-hmm.
now. Okay, we're getting that going, and then you find someone. And this is again, when you're about to outsource, you have to determine how much are you willing to do, because
Mm-hmm.
no matter what, you're
Right.
the leader, so people
Mm-hmm.
are going to come to you. So the more you are willing to make clear, like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is what you need from
Mm-hmm.
me, and like this is the clear, like setting up those
Mm-hmm.
systems and processes are really, really critical. So I think that's where you just start to really understand, like, what are your needs if I
Mm-hmm.
want to accomplish this? What am I
Mm-hmm.
realistically capable of
Mm-hmm.
doing? And you just start small. So
Mm-hmm.
with marketing, there's a few touch points that you can keep,
Mm-hmm.
and like it should be feasible to
Mm-hmm.
maintain on a regular basis. That's your website. Get
Mm-hmm.
it solid, at least something thrown up there to like, because it
And
gives
folks, a
legitimacy.
Facebook business page is not your
Not
website.
a website. It's not a website. You could do a landing page, but it's not, even that's not like, you don't have to have like a full, like multi-page site if you really don't want it.
You need something that is yours.
Right. Right. I love that. It's a good segue into my next point of like, you have to own your channel. So email, people say email is dead. It is not dead.
No.
It is not. It's dead if you don't use it right. It's dead if you don't actually use it at all. You know, and I think if you use it in a way, like a core principle of marketing is really like, one, yelling at someone across the street is marketing, right? People just need to know what you're doing.
Right.
But a core principle is really, and why marketing is so important, why it's so layered, is because it's about connecting with your audience. So how can you connect with them more and look at all of these marketing channels as just the mediums to like the mouthpieces, the dials on the radio, or whatever it is, that whatever analogy is really going to work for you, to determine, to realize like, okay, this is how I'm going to communicate with them. This is the physical thing that's going to reach to them. How do I want to connect with them? Is the next question. And that's where you be really intentional. Let's say you have a high touch service-based business. You can go through the motions of like, okay, I'm on social, I'm doing this, I'm posting generic posts, I'm doing this, whatever. And I think instead you say, okay, I really want to bring in more sales and I really want to retain my customers. I actually want to start upselling my customers. So then you say, you know, a good way I can communicate directly to my customers is through email, because I have all of their emails. Maybe every once in a while I can check in on the phone. But I at least have their emails. I know I can go directly to them. What do I feel like sharing with them? You know, what's going to help them out? So let's say you're a service-based business helping small, like an attorney helping small business owners. Hey, here's a new regulation that just started earlier this year. You have to sign this form to whatever it is, or here's ways you can protect yourself every single year before taxes. I don't know. Obviously, I'm throwing things out. That's how you start to kind of like get into the brain of your audience and start delivering things of value. Then you can take that and then you can stretch it across and repurpose content to use externally too. So again, I just like went through like one random kind of sequence of planning, but ultimately the key to marketing is like focus on what's going to actually bring connection to your audience. What's valuable to you? How can you set yourself up with the right systems and processes in place to make things simple? So I like to think of things like, what's your content driver? So the thing that's going to take the most time, money, and energy. So a podcast, as an example, article, or even sometimes emails. Some people really go like crazy in emails and spend so much time writing them. You have to choose what works best for you. And then you take that and how can that piece of content fuel other channels? So this is how you start to simplify, because you just make it easier. So taking your podcast, you're going to be able to slice and dice this into clips, into written content, into an article, all things that can go on your website, your email, and social media if you have it. You could, if you really wanted to, if you were feeling, you know, a little abundant with your funds, you could post an ad and say, look at this recent, like, I love this episode. This is a great episode. Here's a great soundbite. Let's post it, or whatever that looks like, right? Like that's how you start to play with it. But you got to figure out what's going to give me the biggest longevity that will get me closer to my goals. Is it content? Is it, you know, getting emails? Is it whatever that looks like? And that's where it just starts to vary. And like I said, it's not one size fits all, because just because you are so great at podcasting doesn't mean someone else who's listening is, right? So it's like, you do have to have a lot of self-awareness. And I'm going to say that over and over again, and it's going to be annoying, but like, you really do have to consider, what are my intentions? What do I like to do? What's working? What's not? And just really be honest with yourself and not be afraid to cut things out.
Right. Yeah, and yeah, and just because you invested X number of dollars and time, it might need to be cut. And I think that's one of the hard things is, people were like, but no, I spent so much time on the site formerly known as Twitter, and because of all things going on, it's just not going to work anymore.
Right.
And so, but you said another thing in there that I want to go back and touch on, and that's the G word, and that's goals.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because in a marketing world they talk about BHAGs, big hairy audacious goals. Well, those are okay. I mean, those are things that are so big that you really probably can't achieve them, but we have to have goals, folks. We can't just randomly just like we can't willy-nilly pick what we're going to do. We have to have goals. And the biggest way to think about this is, again, your GPS. You're not going to tell it, take me somewhere. You have to tell it where you want to go, and then you have to figure out, okay, I want to get there in an hour. This route takes me an hour. This route takes me an hour and a half. But oh, look, it goes by something pretty. We have to have those goals because we don't know if we've accomplished anything if we don't have those goals. And as we laugh about BHAGs, and I'll be honest, I think they're stupid. When
I
you
hate
have
acronyms, first of all, but
I
yeah.
know, yeah, BHAG, really. And so, if it's unattainable, then why are you going to have it? I mean, I've heard people who have said, my BHAG is that, small business, my BHAG is to make $5 million a year. Are you ever going to make $5 million a year? Honestly. And they will look at you and they will say, no. Then why are so pick something that's reasonable. So maybe it's 500,000, maybe it's 1 million, maybe it's 50,000. I mean, whatever it is, pick things that you can accomplish. Now, don't underpick. Don't, if you can make 50,000, don't say five. But you have to have those goals. And again, that's part of your planning.
I would say too, like I agree, like it does need to be very
Mm-hmm.
realistic for sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is where goals get so
Right.
jumbled up. So like another thing with marketing is like it and building a brand,
Mm-hmm.
it's about repetition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I actually do like to ask. I mean, I hate BHAG. I hate the term
But it can be a
BHAGs. I hate it.
stretch goal.
It can be, yeah, like a stretch goal is a good way to
Mm-hmm.
describe it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I like to ask, what is your big vision for your
Mm-hmm.
brand? Is your big, because here's the thing, here's the real
Mm-hmm.
truth is some people are like, I just want a revolving door of sales. Like
Mm-hmm.
they don't actually think about
Right.
creating a
Mm-hmm.
brand. They're thinking just about their
Mm-hmm.
business. Both are fine. It's just very different.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, you don't need to invest in certain things that are
Mm-hmm.
better for brand
Mm-hmm.
awareness or
Right.
building a brand than
Mm-hmm.
they are for your
Mm-hmm.
actual business.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a bit of a difference. So I think getting clear around that, but if let's say you do have a big vision, let's say someone
Mm-hmm.
does, it has to be unrelated to money at that point
Mm-hmm.
because like you said, I do who doesn't want to make $5 million a
I
year?
know.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't mind that,
Uh-huh.
right? So this is where it's like, okay, what am I really trying to accomplish? Like if I'm at $5 million,
Mm-hmm.
what is my business actually doing?
Mm-hmm.
Who are we reaching? How many, like
Right.
what is
Mm-hmm.
the experience that we're delivering?
Mm-hmm.
That is a vision,
Mm-hmm.
potential vision for a brand.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say like, business power hour. We're at $5 million, if I by the time we hit $5
Mm-hmm.
million, I envision that we have our own theaters, our own
Right.
studio,
There's
whatever,
all
all the
the
things.
parts that go along
Right.
with it. Mm-hmm.
So I think that piece is still important. Like, again,
Mm-hmm.
not everyone has those dreams or
Mm-hmm.
thoughts or
Mm-hmm.
visions or whatever. But if you do, I think there's still that piece to hold on to because you could use that as the guardrails.
Mm-hmm.
It just because you're not making $5 million now doesn't mean that you can't start
Right.
working towards
Mm-hmm.
some of those big
Mm-hmm.
dreams. So for
Mm-hmm.
instance, let's just say, I know a business owner who wants her own talk show.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, but she's not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how
Mm-hmm.
life works. She's just
Mm-hmm.
not there yet. So I was like, okay, well, here's how you
Mm-hmm.
do a shortcut to
Right.
get
Mm-hmm.
that's like a stepping stone
Mm-hmm.
to that level, right? And so that's where you can start to get really creative with
Mm-hmm.
marketing. And that's where you can say, you know what? I want to be on stages. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people, especially solo business owners,
Mm-hmm.
they want to speak more on
Mm-hmm.
stages. So how do you're not there yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe you're just starting out, you haven't gotten your voice out
Mm-hmm.
there. Well, you can start pitching yourself, you can hire PR, you can,
Mm-hmm.
there's other ways. So I like to use the BHAGs, if you
Mm-hmm.
will,
Mm-hmm.
or stretch goals or whatever it is as the guardrails. That
Mm-hmm.
is your North Star. That is what you're working towards.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything else is just molding to like is the stepping stone to
Mm-hmm.
that. And then
Mm-hmm.
you just mold it to see, how is this really going to
Right.
work with me at the
Mm-hmm.
level I'm at?
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and having that, as you said, there are all these other pieces that come with it. So, you're thinking, okay, well, I want to achieve that at some point, but that means I have to have more employees. I have to have a different facility. And so then you can, work on all of those because it's not just, hey, I'm going to reach that goal. No, it's what's between now and then. And I think that's one thing because I've asked people, what are, because we've done that thing before, right? And we used to do it a lot in one of my networking groups. What is your BHAG? And they would say, and I'm like, but how are you going to get there? And they would look at me and I would say, it seems to me like you're going to have a lot more employees. Can you do that? Oh, no, I want to do this by myself. I don't want to have employees. I hate hiring people. Okay, how many more hours are you going to have in your day? Because you just talked about, a 50-hour day, let alone a 50-hour work week. And kind of joking along those lines, it can be the opposite too, right? I want to build my business up so that I can retire. I want to build my business up. I had a guest one time who I loved him. He said, I knew I made it and I was successful when I could go on vacation and nobody would call me because he had the right teams in place.
Right.
And so that, I mean, so you can have all these goals that you have are very different, but again, we can't just be going, ooh, bright shiny object, ooh, ooh, ooh. And even if you do pick the bright shiny object, what are you using the bright shiny object to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's that is literally the whole point, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like it's just a matter of what are your goals?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that this shiny object is
Mm-hmm.
going to accomplish them?
Right.
And again, you keep it simple by being very
Mm-hmm.
selective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't, even if you don't have a team, you can do a
Mm-hmm.
lot. You
Mm-hmm.
just have to be smarter about it.
Mm-hmm.
And like again, keep it simple.
Mm-hmm.
And the way to grow is by figuring out what your
Mm-hmm.
baseline it feels
Mm-hmm.
good, what baseline feels good to
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's one email a week,
Mm-hmm.
it's one social
Mm-hmm.
media post a week, and then you've got your website or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
let's just say that works. That's only a few hours a week if you
Right.
really wanted it to be,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or a few hours in a month and then you batch
Mm-hmm.
schedule it all, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
This is where like systems and processes
Mm-hmm.
can really come into play. But then, and then once you establish your baseline, you're in this groove, it's not taking that much time and
Mm-hmm.
energy and money to get it done. That's when you can say, you know what? I think I want to delegate this. Maybe I'll
Right.
outsource this
Or double it. Or mm-hmm.
exactly, or
Mm-hmm.
double it. And so the way to keep it simple
Mm-hmm.
is by cutting it
Mm-hmm.
out and not being afraid to
Mm-hmm.
cut it out.
Mm-hmm.
I like in a very quick story is I had a client who she was hated marketing by the time I
Mm-hmm.
got to her. So the point to where she was like it was a very interesting
Mm-hmm.
workshop
Yeah,
that we
I'm
did.
surprised she even wanted to talk with you.
Right, exactly. She was at I think at
Mm-hmm.
her last
Mm-hmm.
move. Like she was like, I can't do this
Mm-hmm.
anymore. And I realized she was spreading herself too thin.
Mm-hmm.
She was on Twitter, which was
Mm-hmm.
what it was called at the time. She was doing emails, she was
Mm-hmm.
writing articles for her blog, plus publications. She was on
Mm-hmm.
social, all the things.
Mm-hmm.
She was doing videos that she hated to do. And I was like, what do you like to do? And this is where she actually got testy
Mm-hmm.
with me. She's like, I don't care what I like to do. You tell me.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you're here because all you did was fall for the shiny object trap.
Mm-hmm. Right.
What do you like to do? And
Mm-hmm.
so she told me, I was like, all right. So in her case, it was articles. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to spend most of your time getting those
Mm-hmm.
articles. You're then going to chop that up
Mm-hmm.
into ways to where it could work for email and social
Mm-hmm.
media. And so a month later, she's like, I cut my marketing in half
Mm-hmm.
at least. and she increased her
Mhm.
engagement and the things she
Right.
was doing. She hadn't been getting, she was crickets
Mhm.
before.
Mhm.
And I was like, you just keep it simple. It doesn't
Right.
have to, you don't have to
Mhm.
spread yourself too thin
Mhm.
if it doesn't work. And
Mhm.
don't do things you hate doing.
Right. And we do get caught up in the I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this because somebody else is. And we have to keep up with those Joneses. But and as a business owner, there are going to be things, or manager, whatever, that you do that you don't like. We can't delegate everything. We can't, there are going to be things that you have to, that you're going to do. But again, you have to really think about it. Okay, I do not, example, I do not like doing social media posts. Well, that's going to come across in the posts, right?
Totally.
They're going to be short. They're going to be, you're not going to respond when people comment. I mean, all of these things. So either A, don't do it at all, or B, find somebody else who does like to do it. And that's the thing, we are not an island. And so many times, especially when you are a solopreneur, you do think I'm an island. Well, no, you're not. Even if it is just AI that you're starting to use to do some of this stuff, there are certainly ways that you can be helped with all of these things.
Right. Absolutely. 100%. AI can give you shortcuts, but you have to be
Mhm.
careful with AI because it will just generalize and then you just use
Mhm.
it as a crutch and it's not
Yeah.
as like
Yeah.
potent. But
Right.
I love using it. Sometimes I just brain dump and
Mhm.
I'll just say, organize my thoughts
Mhm. Mhm.
to fit whatever
Right.
it is I'm trying
Mhm.
to fit. And
Mhm.
I love it. It
Mhm.
like that really helps give
Mhm.
me a leg up.
Mhm.
But I notice when it's like I'm using it as a crutch, I'm like, this sounds too generic. I'm like,
Yeah.
well,
Or it sounds like my competition.
it will always sound
Mhm.
like your
Mhm.
competition.
Right. Because it's pulling from those
Right.
resources.
Exactly.
It's not, we like to think of it as being this great thing that's thinking. No, it's not thinking. It's pulling from other resources.
Right. Exactly.
Well, oh my gosh, Caroline, this is so much fun. And we didn't even talk about that one thing called budget and what do all those things. So, we'll have you on again to have this discussion, because that's the other thing is people are like, and I don't care what size you are, you still have a budget. You have, there is no such thing as an unlimited budget. The big companies say we're going to spend X. The little companies have lots of zeros less than that. But and that's the other thing. People are like, oh my God, what do I spend my money on? So we'll have you on again to talk about that. But tell us, specifically, how do people find you and what are the services that you provide?
Yes. Well, first of all, this was so much fun. So thank you so much for having me on. I can be found at LinkedIn. I'm
Mhm.
more active on LinkedIn. We
Okay.
are finally reactivating my Instagram because again, I took my own
Mhm.
advice. I was like,
Mhm.
I don't want to keep up with this right
Mhm.
now. And
Mhm.
now we're inching up back to getting that up and running.
Mhm. Mhm.
How we work, so we help people at a few different phases in their business cycle.
Mhm.
So I have a single session for anyone who's basically like, I just need a quick
Mhm.
hit. I'm so blocked right now. I don't know what to do.
Mhm.
I for the entire month of November, I have a 65% discount on my
Ooh.
single sessions,
Mhm.
with the code thanks.
Mhm.
For this is basically, and it's a marketing momentum session.
Mhm.
In 90 minutes, you'll walk
Mhm.
away with a 90-day marketing
Mhm.
plan. So we will go
And
through
it's
all.
2024, folks, for those of you who are
Yes,
listening
for
in the
2024. Thank
future.
you.
Yes.
November
Mhm.
2024,
Mhm.
all through Cyber Monday.
Mhm.
And then I am just opening up a one-to-one offering where it's more of a 3-month sprint where
Mhm.
we fix your marketing. We
Mhm.
figure out how you're getting your budget,
Mhm.
what are your systems and
Mhm.
processes, what's your positioning, what's your sales
Mhm.
process, all the things. We look
Mhm.
at everything under the marketing umbrella. And then if you're a larger company and just feel like your team's not really doing it, or
Mhm.
you're working with an agency that's not really working,
Mhm.
we do it all. We
Mhm.
do an overhaul. So
Mhm.
it's called the marketing reset. So
Mhm.
we help people at
Mhm.
various levels depending on really what their root problem
Mhm.
probably is. But ultimately, like, we are here to spread the word around marketing and educate people on
Mhm.
marketing. So if you just have no idea what the heck you're doing, if you're stuck in analysis paralysis, if you're overwhelmed, just give us a call and we'll figure it out with you. And, we always find a solution.
I love it. And your website is Cultiveight Communications, but you spell cultivate in a way that my spell checker went, bleh.
Yes, spell check does not love it, but it's Cultiveight, Cultiv, in the word EIGHT, all one word, cultiveightcommunications.com.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. Well, until we chat with you again, and this really has been so much fun, so I can't wait to do that. But are there any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Yes. Stop comparing and start reflecting. And that's it. Like, that's going to save you. It really will. Like, you'll know who you are, what your brand needs, what your business needs, and you can make decisions from that place. Don't chase someone else's success or because you don't know their failures.
I love it. Such wise words. Well, I am Deb Creer. I have been speaking with Caroline Crawford of Cultiveight Communications. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.